good morning, everybody, wherever you are in the world. This is Enolia, and this is The Infinite Way. And I'm excited to have my guest here, Nate Miller, coming to you from Colorado. And Nate, I'm going to have everyone just listen to you for that introduction.
All right, well, thanks for having me on. My name is Nate Miller. I'm the Aquaponics uh, innovation designer for the I Will Projects, a local nonprofit here in Colorado. Uh, um, this is my 13th year doing aquaponics, and we've been really lucky getting to go around the world and teach people and introduce people to this concept. And it's been a passion of my life for a long time. I actually started in 2009 when I got on this journey, and yeah, so I had a lot of fun so far. So I'm glad. I'm really, really glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming because I think it's really important to educate people on aquaponics. So
Yeah.
I've had brief exposure to it, and I think it is a phenomenal way to do agriculture,
Yeah.
okay, and that cycle of life. So I want to start us off with just you introducing what aquaponics is.
All right. So aquaponics is a cross between aquaculture, which is the raising of fish, usually for food, but sometimes for stocking of lakes and stuff as well, and hydroponics, which is the growing of plants in a water-based substrate. So all of the nutrition for the plants comes through the water. So when you cross those together, we end up with a full living ecosystem. And that's my favorite part about this is we're not dealing with the whole system is alive. So we end up with the fish as we feed the fish, uh, as they process their food and their waste stream comes out. It ends up in the water column, and we have our friends, the bacteria, come in, and we have a certain set that eats the fish waste. When it starts to break down, releases ammonia. And we have a microbe called nitrosomonas. It eats the ammonia and converts it to ammonium nitrite. And then another bacteria called nitrobacter eats the ammonium nitrite and converts it to ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is what plants use for their main nitrogen source for their growth. So as the water cycles through the system on a closed loop,
Mhm.
which actually is great because it allows us to save about 80%, 80 to 90% of the water in a traditional in-ground bed. So it's a very good way to do this in places that have deserts or something like that, or if you're in a zone that has that really wet season and then a really dry season, so this is a good way to conserve water. And so the plants end up uptaking all of those nitrates out, which essentially cleans the water for the fish. So as the water cycles back through there, it's a constant flow of nutrients flowing through and microbes doing the work. I always like to think about these systems as they're really a microbe farm, and the fish being the protein source that we get to eat. So it's nice that you can get that. And then the plants, the nutrition that comes from the plant. So, and I've been able to go, I haven't been stumped yet. So, yeah, I've been able to do everything. My favorite plant that I actually have here in Colorado, which is fun for a lot of people, is my moringa tree. I've had it for 5 years. So, yeah, it's really great. We've been able to do trees, and I can do root crops. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it, and there's a wide range of ways that we can build these systems. So we can really customize them to what someone needs, and that's my favorite part about it is I like to design new systems for new places. So each
Okay.
system that I get a chance to put in or help someone design is its own unique system because it's built right for you, right? Like, so it's going to go right into the place that you want it to go. And when we do the indoor ones, which we have to do a lot here in Colorado because of the wintertime, it gets way too cold to grow anything outside for the fish. So they usually end up indoors or in a greenhouse. So when we do the indoor ones, sometimes we get real unique where I had to wrap them around corners and stuff like that. So and then the other thing about this system that is quite different from any other grow method is we actually get an output from the system.
Right.
So over time, the fish waste can build up. So you need to remove that out of there. So when we remove that fish waste out of there, now we're creating a fertilizer source as well that we can use in our in-ground garden or for your trees or something else. Or my favorite method to do it is called a dual root zone, where you actually have living soil structure that sits above the water column. So then the plant gets to partake of the entire soil food web and the aquatic food web. So we get more interactions with microbes. The fungi can still be in place. And then that waste stream can actually stay in the system by fertilizing back into the soil structure. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do it.
So, I'm sitting here in Africa, and I know that this knowledge is so needed. Okay. And when I sit back and I think about it, those who are not familiar with aquaponics, is it hard to learn? And is it something that can be established, because farm raising fish is not a problem here? People understand about farm raising fish, right? So taking a cycle like a farm fish situation and changing it and actually establishing that raised bed for food, or creating a system that can nurture the food based on that waste, is it hard to design?
No, not really. There's so many different ways that we can do it. So let's say you were in a little pond or something, right?
Mhm.
You can actually just pump the water up out of the pond right into your grow bed and have it go right back into the pond. Or you can even do it where the water just pumps into the grow bed and that's where it stays. So there's a lot of different ways. So in a system like that, you can basically turn aquaponics into what they call a sub irrigated planter. So
Okay.
you could build it into pots. So you don't always have to have this recycling system. There's many different ways to do it. There's another method that works really well with sand. So you actually use sand as the substrate,
Okay.
and then you can pump the water up there like once an hour or once
Okay.
every 2 hours. So wait, because sometimes when you get into locations where electricity can become a problem, and if we're building a big system and we're running a big water pump on there, sometimes that doesn't work for everybody. And my favorite thing about this is we can design these to work in places where normally you wouldn't think you could do this, because using a little solar panel and a DC air pump,
Mm.
we can use geyser pumps to do that. So we can actually move that water up. And then with the sand based system, you don't have to do it at night. So you have to
Okay.
pump it up all day. And then when the sun goes down, it's fine. As soon as the sun comes back up, it starts running again. So that's a very simple way. With the water based, if you have access to a regular water pump, you can get multiple ebb and flow cycles where the water uses physics and it fills up and triggers the siphon and drains back out, and it goes up and down all day. And that's my favorite method, because when you put the dual root zone of the pots in there, you actually get a breath action. So
Okay.
it reminds me of us, right? This is what drives us in life, is this breath. And the breath is a really fun involuntary mechanism, right? There's not pretty much the only involuntary mechanism that we have that we can actually take control of.
Exactly.
So this is what I like about this. You can take control of those within the system as well. So it's really interesting how we link up our lives with these ecosystems, because we are an ecosystem in of ourselves, but then we're a part of this ecosystem. And in my opinion, we should be the stewards of this ecosystem and helping it out and helping it thrive. And my favorite part about you being in Africa, I've been doing a lot of research on some of the things that are going down there, and some of the stuff is just frustrating. The stuff going on with the monoculture tree farms with the
Yeah.
eucalyptus trees, they're just devastating over there. They're not built for that environment, and they they wreck it. And they're causing a lot of the blue tilapia, because there's two different types of tilapia that over there. So you have the Nile and the blue, and
Right.
a lot of the blue tilapia are losing their habitat because nothing's stopping the dust and dirt from going into the rivers,
Yes.
because these tree farms are closing it off, right? So, and as soon as you get that river, when it changes from a clear flowing stream into the muddy water that from all the dust going in there, as soon as the dust is all in there and it's murky, those Nile tilapia are going to come right up that line. So the Nile tilapia are actually pushing them out of their own habitats. And it's strange that like I like they're almost to the point they're sort of endangered there,
Mm-hmm.
but they will never end up on that list of an
No,
endangered
of
species
an
because there's
endangered species.
millions and millions and millions of blue tilapia in aquaponic systems and aquaculture systems all over the world. Tilapia are the kings of the fish world when it comes to these types of systems because they tick all the boxes that you want. They breed super simple, so they're very easy to breed. They can take wide range of pH. They can take pretty good temperature range. They don't do so well in the cold, but they can get down to about 50, 55, 50. Well, maybe that's pushing it, but they can get under 60 a little bit, 57, 58 degrees, and they won't pass away.
Okay.
And when you so they're big strange. And then the powerful thing about them, where other fish become a little bit more complicated, is naturally they're a river fish, so they're semi-territorial, but they have a little quirk. When you put them all in the tank and you take away the territory, they kind of turn into a docile, like a schooling fish.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a big tank of them with a bunch of them in there,
Yes,
they
I
just kind of
have.
cruise around in a circle.
Cruise
um,
around.
and
Exactly.
there's so many other fish that you could do in these systems that don't have that ability. Like
Right.
catfish work really well if you can keep the water in the right temperatures. But as soon as the water starts to warm up and the catfish want to go in a breeding cycle, then you have a little competition going on in your tank, and some of those probably won't make it out of that. So the tilapia make it really nice because they're just easy and they breed really easy in there. So
Yes, they do. And
to me, it's a superpower.
they also eat very differently too. That you can feed tilapia like various mangoes, or you can feed tilapia like vegetables, like a
Yeah,
cabbage and whatnot, and
yeah,
they'll grow even faster than the
yeah.
typical fish food because they love that in their system, that cycle. You could probably talk to that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're an omnivore. So they will eat bugs, they will eat other fish, but they're primarily an herbivore. So they live off of algae and other plants and stuff like that. So they can eat just about anything. I mean, I know of a system actually about 45 minutes away from me that they feed them alfalfa. Hey,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
thing as the horses, and that's all they feed them. And I was just like, it hurts my heart a little bit, but alfalfa is kind of a wizard plant as well because it's
yes.
really good for all kinds of different stuff. And it's actually got everything that they need. But and the other thing about Africa that I love, which is actually, I have to give some thanks to my friend Fred Juma over in Kenya.
Hmm.
He's been teaching me about the black soldier fly, and
Okay.
the black soldier fly is, in my opinion, the craziest insect on the planet.
So
It's
you have
just
to educate
unbelievable.
us because I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So the black soldier fly are native there. So they grow all over the place and they are ferocious eaters. They can eat 1.5 to 4 times their body weight every day.
Okay.
They have a really high protein content, probably the most efficient protein source on the planet. And
Mm.
tilapia is up there at the top of the list as well.
Wow.
So yeah, tilapia, if I remember correctly, it was 1.5 pounds of food equal 1 pound of flesh on the tilapia. Really, really good
Wow.
ratio. So, and then the black soldier fly is far more proficient at creating protein. So they're in the 40% range, 42% protein, and like in the 30% lipids, so the fat content. So they got a really good fat content, and they're really high in calcium. So these grubs, actually, if you were growing lizards or any type of reptile, they have the
Mhm.
perfect calcium to phosphorus ratio for most reptiles. So you don't
Okay.
actually have to supplement on top. But the cool thing is these are a decomposing, so they'll eat just about anything that we can eat. Yeah, so the black soldier fly is actually naturally would be a decomposer.
Okay.
So they'll live on in the wild. They would live on dead animals or waste. So different types of waste streams that come out of that, like worm bins and stuff like that. They'll kind of cruise on that. But So they'll eat anything that we can eat. Their digestive system is much like ours. So they like high protein, high fat, carbohydrates. So to me, in my, like, the way I see it, that's the powerhouse of these things. So they will eat waste streams from other animals. So say you're raising chickens or pigs, you can actually feed the entire waste stream from the chickens or the pigs to the black soldier flies.
Okay.
And if you're, so if you were already raising tilapia, and if you're processing a tilapia, all the insides and the stuff that you aren't going to eat can go to the black soldier fly. And then they can solve the food waste problem all over the world as well.
And how's this? I'm interested. You got
So yeah, so food waste is a large issue on the planet, right?
yes.
Um, it's actually the third largest cause of greenhouse gases. If it were a country, right? So if
Right.
landfills were a country, it would be the third largest producer of greenhouse gases, and it's primarily methane from the
Right.
anaerobic decomposition of
Correct.
organic matter.
Yes.
So as the black soldier fly could step in and totally destroy that problem for us. So they eat so fast and reproduce so fast.
Oh,
One female can lay between 500 and 900 eggs
okay.
per round. The life cycle is quite short, about a month for start to finish. And the difference between them and like a earthworms, right? So a lot of people like raise red wigglers to create fertilizer, and they
Yes.
feed stuff to them, and they think that that's like a good way to get rid of that organic waste,
Right.
right? And they're all right. They're all right. I'm not gonna knock them. They're powerful, right? But these things are just tremendous. So the difference between it is, if you have a red wiggler bin, they just convert stuff. Nothing goes away.
Hmm.
Where the black soldier flies convert like 80% into body weight, into biomass.
Okay.
So you actually get a massive reduction of a go, and they can eat, like, in, when they're out there in a large quantity, they can actually eat faster than the microbes reproduce. So, and they're a great protein source, right? So if you're back with the scenario of the chickens and the pigs, so you can take these waste streams from that you've got to do something with, right? You
Hmm.
compost it or whatever. Well, you just feed them to the black soldier flies, and then turn that waste stream back into usable protein that you turn around and feed right back to the chickens or the pigs.
Mm,
So I mean, so
okay.
it's like a closed loop system on here, and that's actually where I really found out about them. So with the I Will projects, our nonprofit, um, I was working in the lab, and I was building all these different systems, and I've been really curious on how I could close that last piece of the loop, right? So the only input coming into the system for the most part, except for maybe some iron and a little bit of calcium and stuff, is the fish food.
Okay.
And when we're playing with tilapia, they love vegetables, right?
That's
So
right. That's
some
right.
of this vegetable waste can go back to the tilapia. Or I was thinking that maybe I need to harvest 20% of the system or something to give back to it, or maybe 80%, right? I don't know what that ratio would be. And then the more I started thinking about that, I was like, well, I need a protein source that's sufficient. And that's how I originally found out about the black
Black.
soldier flies. And that was 4.5 years ago or so when I found out about them. And I was just looking at them as a protein source. I didn't really understand the wizardry of these things. So it wasn't until we got connected with the Kalestis Juma Foundation,
Hmm.
and we went over to the executive director of our nonprofit, went over to Kenya, and that's where she met Fred Juma, and he started showing her about it, and we were there to see the tilapia in the Lake Victoria, right? And
Right.
he takes her back to the farm, and then he shows it around, shows her the chickens and pigs, and then shows it, brings her over to the black soldier fly. And she was like, good Lord, like Nate did it again, kind of thing, because I'd already told her, I asked to, I asked to do these things like 4 years ago, and they just heard flies indoors in the garage, and they were like, oh, so yeah, it kind of worked out that it played out. And then what was fascinating about what Fred did over there is he decided to take it and spread the wealth a little bit. And he went out to the rural areas to and taught a lot of women and children and young people how to farm these things
Okay.
because they're right there. You don't have to do anything to get them. You just put out some waste and they just
Waste and
show
they
up.
show up.
Where
Right.
I gotta get on Amazon and buy some stuff and have them shipped here and everything because I can't. They don't exist where I live. So I'm having to farm them indoors now. So my
Okay.
system that I'm working on here, which is for me, it's fun because now I get to do an innovative thing that's slightly different. But so when Fred went out there and taught the other people, they would bring him the grubs that they're farming and he weigh them out and pay them. So it created jobs. And as I started going down and looking at these systems and trying to figure out how can I do this? I don't know how to farm insects, you know. And I had met another gentleman on Clubhouse who actually designed a really cool black soldier fly bin, and that's the bin I'm using right now. And I knew that thing existed because that's how I found out about him. He's the one that taught me about him, you know, or he was the one that reiterated the fact when I met him again. I was like, yeah, I wanted to do those, but this and that. So I had a grasp of how to do it this way on the indoors.
Okay.
And so then I started doing stuff and you know, Fred taught me how they do it. And I started looking around the world and pretty much everybody does it similar to Fred. And it's a labor intensive situation.
Okay.
But that's beautiful, right? Because then people got jobs.
That's right.
People got jobs and you know, and I'm just me over here.
Yeah, so I'm sitting
So
here thinking and thinking about what you're saying, and I'm sitting here as a person who grew up, born and raised in New York, and then lived upstate New York, where the landfills are everywhere, and they're overfilled, and they're constantly letting out an abundance of methane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It would be great to play with that and to
yeah.
see if a landfill can be actually redesigned, you know, such that the majority of the waste could be broken down instead of just buried. You
Right.
know, with the methane shoots coming out and then the gas being produced and you get an abundance of methane. And again, it's not being used in a productive way. It's just being released out into the atmosphere.
Right.
And, you know, there you
Methane is far worse, far
go.
worse than
Exactly
CO2, right? Like
right.
it's I don't remember how many times worse, but it's multiple times worse. So
Hmm.
yeah, you end up with that methane stream and yeah, it totally doesn't have to do that way, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be there. But
Exactly.
you got to figure out got to figure out how to do them indoors and bring them into locations that can't be done, right? But the nice thing is you get a really high grade protein source that I mean, I don't feel that we're in the state of chaos yet on the planet that we need to be eating the black soldier flies, but you absolutely could. And from what I hear, they're pretty tasty. I haven't
Okay.
had a chance to try one. I'm gonna wait a little while because my bin, I'm just getting through the first cycle of the first round, have turned into flies, and I'm hoping they're mating. I don't know. So yeah, I'm just waiting to see how the cycle plays out because I made a little bit of a mistake on how I put it together my first trial at this, and the netting that I used on there like just kind of didn't work out as well as I thought it would. So, and this is the stuff that I love. Yeah, I love making mistakes on these things, right? Because you know, mistakes are the pave stones on the path to success, right? Or you know, because you
Absolutely.
got to make those mistakes because then you learn, right? And I know
Exactly.
not how to do it next time and those kind of things. So, you know, too many people are afraid of making mistakes, and to
Yes,
me, I
that's
embrace those mistakes, and that's how we gain wisdom is through making the mistakes. So it's you know, it's fun when I actually get myself because it's been a while since I made mistakes in the aquaponic side. And this was also something that intrigued me about Africa, right? So we were going to go over there and we're going to be teaching two primary schools starting next year and teaching the young ones the aquaponics. And as I started to think this and I got the information that we were going to be doing that, I kind of got excited about it. And she was like, what's got you? And I was like, I get to go back to DIY. I get to go back to innovating on things because you know, I mean, is I can drive right up the road here and hit hit the hardware store and I could, but everything I need was right there.
Right.
That's not the case everywhere, right? So the rest of the world, like, that's not the case
That's
everywhere.
not the case. I'm telling you, it's not the case.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But what's fun about this is when I started doing this, I didn't have the money to go out there and do that. So I built my first couple of systems were built for free or mostly free, other than the pump. Well, and my lights, because I do it indoors, but the rest of that stuff can be found. You can do it in 55-gallon barrels, you can use IBC totes. There's all kinds, I mean, there's all kinds of ways. And then you can do it right in the ground, right? You can dig a hole and you can line it with some pond liner, or just don't even line it. You can
Yeah,
use it right out of the river. So the river itself could pump up into a system and right back into the river, or as we talked earlier
right.
about, out of the other tanks and stuff. So any aquaculture operation that's already going on could easily be converted into an aquaponic system. And it really just makes their job easier because now they're not having to do water changes and those kind of things. So the filtration gets easier, because the plants help out with that. So all you really need is like whatever your solid separator to separate the waste stream, and the plants can do the rest.
The plants can do the
Um,
best. I'm going to
yeah, so
pause you
it's
because I want to take a
uh,
little bit of a twist. All right. Nate Miller,
mhm.
you are a plethora of knowledge, wisdom. We are so grateful to be able to share this with everyone else. So you said you started doing this in 2009, and I want to just go back and get to know you a little bit. So what was it? What was it that just said, you know what, I got to do this? That drew you to the water, that drew you to the fish, the ecosystem, the love of the cycle of life in your life.
Yeah, so I suppose it really started when I was real little, 4 or 5 years old. My mom loved fish tanks, right?
Mhm.
So we had aquariums at the house, and I learned to help out in the cleaning process of how to clean a fish tank. And anybody that's had an aquarium, you got to do your
Yes.
20% water change every week and all that stuff. So I learned to do all that. So I had a really good understanding of the cycle itself, right? Because anybody that's got an aquarium, that nitrogen cycle, right? And that
Right.
nitrogen cycle is the same thing that we do with aquaponics. So it's no different what happens in that water column. The only difference is we don't have to do that water change because the plants are pulling those nitrates out. So you're
Mhm.
doing those water changes to keep the nitrates from building up. So I was lucky to learn that as a little kid. And then, so the rest of it kind of started, I was like 18, 19 years old. And yeah, I think it was actually my 18th birthday. I got a tattoo in the back of a bar. And I just like kind of watched what was going down in the bar, and I was like, you know what, I think I'd be really good at this. So I kind of went after it and got finally got in. I had to go through bouncing at a nightclub first to get in, and then ended up getting behind the bar. And I've been bartending almost 23 years now,
Okay.
and that's where it all really started. So I going into the restaurant industry was a lot of fun, and and I'm really blessed in my life that I kind of adopted pretty early the idea that every soul that I encounter, like, they got knowledge, right? And I love learning, so I've kind of looked at it as I want to learn that, right? So compassion comes really easy because everybody's got knowledge everybody's got knowledge in something, and so that was a really good trait to have as a bartender because I met thousands of people and learned thousands of things over the course of that career. And then 2008, yeah, somewhere right around there. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was 2008. Yeah, about a year before I started messing around with this. I went to the culinary school.
Mm,
Just decided to go to the culinary school, and I had already had 8 years bartending experience before I went to the culinary school. But I just kind of wanted to go to college. I never got a chance to go to college because I had my son came along and changed my life at 18 when he first showed up, and I was 19 when he was born. And so I didn't get the chance to go to college. And then when I got the opportunity, I realized because of my financial situation and all that stuff, I realized that like I didn't have to pay for college, the community college at the culinary. So I went and looked at that big long list of what was going on with that, and nothing sounded fun really. And then I was like, oh well, culinary. I guess I'm already doing that. At least I can get some, some more streamlined traditional knowledge of what I'm doing in the restaurants. And went over there and just kind of tore it up. They didn't, it was one of those things. I already had 8 years experience, so the rest was easy. But then I found out I really love the cooking side of it, right? I
Okay.
really love to cook because I mean that's alchemy that I don't get. I mean,
Yes.
cooking is like alchemy, right?
Yes, it is.
Because it's not about the ingredients. It's not about the
No,
recipe, right? The actual ingredient that matters is who is stirring the pot.
that's right.
Because and then over there it was fun to really watch that in action at the culinary school. We got 20 kids in the class or whatever. We have the same ingredients out of the same boxes, and we have the same recipe, but you have 20 wildly different renditions of that, right? Everybody's taste different. I mean, it's so yeah, I really fell in love with that because then it's a little bit more creative, and but the skill set is exactly the same in a
Hmm.
kitchen from the front of house to the back of house. The only thing I didn't have in the back of house, you don't get the interactions anymore. And so I remember the last it was like the capstone class, my last class of that. And all this everybody else was over there talking about their cookbooks and what the best cookbooks were and this and that. And I,
Yeah.
just chilling. And chef noticed, right? So chef's like, well, what's up, Nate? You're awful quiet for a change. Because just I'm yakking all the time. And I was like, I ain't got no cookbooks. I was like, I ain't gonna be no cook. He's like, what? I was like, you ain't never gonna catch me cooking in a restaurant unless I buy one. If I bought a restaurant and I was the owner, I would cook. And I would teach and train the front of house so they can go make their money.
I know
Right.
why
And
too. Go
then
ahead.
yeah, but you know what I mean? Because then I
Yeah.
get to have that, and then and that's fun, right? Because I like if I owned the place, I don't need the gratuity anymore, right? And I built my life, I built my family, I started businesses off of the gratuity of others. And it was just because like it's just about respect for people, right? Like
Yeah.
just go in and it's an experience, right? Like when you come in,
Exactly.
like it's an experience. So it was really fun. And then as I went down that path and we really started looking at the food system, man, this is rather broken. And
Yeah.
I like the more I learned about how it all works and farther I went down, like later in life, right? When I was there, I was just like, this is broken. Just tear it down. You know what I mean? Whatever. Just get
Right.
real crazy
Right.
about it. And I still basically think that way. But I am kind of in awe of the efficiency of it. It's
Hmm.
fascinating that like how efficient the whole thing works. But other than that, I mean, it's basically culinary cardboard they're throwing out to everybody because there's no nutrition in the food anymore. I, it's just it's frustrating, but efficiency sometimes things gotta be streamlined to get efficiency. So a lot of the food that we're getting doesn't have the proper nutrition anymore.
Right.
Um, they have to harvest it early so it doesn't go bad. And if you've ever grown a tomato and picked it right off the vine, you've got what, maybe 72 hours or so before that thing rots away and goes bad.
That's right.
But
The
it'll change
temper
your
changed.
world,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it
They
did for
changed
me.
it.
That was like the first thing so when I saw that, I was like, man, I need to start growing my own food. So I grew grew a little plant out there and tasted that tomato and was like, oh, I've never eaten a tomato before that day, right? Because what they get at the grocery store, that ain't
It's
I mean,
not a tomato.
compared to that, it's not a tomato.
That's right.
And like being able to harvest food at the peak of its ripeness and eat it right away. No, it's just, and then from the culinary side, the things you can do with those, yeah, I mean, it's so much more fun when you can play around with good ripe vegetables. So and then on the where the hydroponic side came in is I have epilepsy. So
Okay.
I was attempting to try to learn how to treat that myself because I didn't want to go to take the pharmaceutical drugs. Like if I could, just don't want to take them. And so I went down the path and tried to learn a little bit about CBD. And so I was kind of already messing around with that. And that's when I started looking at it. I was like, well, like, and I don't remember exactly how I found aquaponics, but I was just like, oh, there it is. I know how to do fish tanks. And now I have an organic method of hydroponics, right?
Right.
So aquaponics is still hydroponics.
Yes, it
And
is.
so now I've got an ecosystem based organic method of producing both sides, and I got protein and vegetables. So it just like as soon as I like clicked, I was like, man, like this is fantastic. So I just played around here in the basement trying to figure out how to do it, and I bet a bit probably 20 different systems or something. Failure after failure after failure, you know, because I didn't have the money to go out and buy the like to buy one. So I was, you know, just silicone and pieces of pipe together and just all kinds of goofy stuff that I thought would work. And different things happen. Like, sometimes I had one that was working pretty well, and then as the plant got bigger, all of a sudden the root system got bigger and plugged up the water pipe and water comes out. So you learn just all these little quirks of different things that break down. And then when um see it was about 20 yeah, it was about 2017, well, 2016, 2017 is when the seizures really ramped up. um Turns out stress is a real deal. And I was working 4 jobs at that point in time. Well, I guess I skipped that part about I jumped too far ahead. So actually, 3 years after I dropped out of the culinary school right before I had like a semester left, and
Okay.
dropped out to start my own business.
Right.
So we had a clothing line and a print shop that we started, silk screen t-shirts. And so we got started with that, and I was still bartending full time, and then running the t-shirt, the clothing line, and the print shop. And I get a phone call one afternoon from Chef Tom, and he's like, "Hey Nate, what you doing?" I was like, "Hey man, how you been? I haven't seen you in a long time." He's like, "Look, want to come work for us?" So they hired me at the college, and I got a chance to go back to the college and become the instructor. And you can't say no to that, right? I mean, isn't that the definition of a master, right? When you can we go back, and I didn't apply for it. I didn't know what it meant to go back and teach, but I know how to do my job really well. And now I already had the schooling. So coming out of that school was fun because you would think there wasn't a whole lot to learn when you've got 8 years experience going in there. And I actually didn't learn all that much in my skill set, right?
Hmm.
But what I learned is why we do it.
Ah, okay.
Right. So there's methods to, and I didn't know this. I didn't know some of these things that we do are like established techniques. And what I found out is those established techniques, the way they want you to do it in the fine dining, that's how you make money in the lesser side, right? Across the
Right.
board. So it turned out that I was kind of already doing this, and it was mainly because of just how my brain works, right? Because like my brain works a little bit different than most people in that, because if I function really, really well in that chaos stream of a restaurant.
Okay.
Um, so like I have kind of that superpower ability, and I believe it's that ADHD stuff. So I can function really, really well in that zone. So what I found out was is like the stuff that I was doing that like other people weren't doing, it turns out that's the way you're supposed to do it. And it was really fun to kind of learn that. And so when I went back to teach, I realized, wait, how you make money is to do it right. So what if I come at them like that? right? So then I brought that to the mix because the instructor that I had, she worked at Denny's for like 2 months, right? And she was just teaching out the book. But now I'm teaching how to make money. So the students got it, and it was so much fun.
Oh,
And the cool thing about the classroom that I had was it was a live restaurant 4 days a week. So
that's wonderful.
on yeah, on Mondays was classroom day. And so we would go on, that was class day, that was planning days. We, learn the new menu. The menu rotated every 2 weeks. And so in the kitchen were all the mid-level students, and the front of house was so in mine it was students from all ages. It wasn't like a cycle for them. But yeah, it was all students. And then we would open up for lunch for an hour and a half, and live guests, walk-in guests. And the food was most of the time was really good, except for the fact it's still students, so stuff, sometimes. But it was cheap. So we got pretty busy every day. So it was really fun because then you actually got to feel that live action.
Yeah.
And it was also interesting to find out that like a lot of people can't do that. They
No,
can't do that,
no,
right?
they don't do
Because it
chaos
is the
well.
yeah, they don't do chaos well. And I tell you what, like like thinking about working in an office or something, just
Uh-huh.
that
No,
would be, yeah,
you don't want to
I
go
couldn't
there.
do it, right? Yeah, I just couldn't do
You don't
it.
want to
Like
go there.
I'd be bouncing off the walls, and I couldn't do it. But like in that where it's constant motion, I'm constant moving. And and like one of the other things that worked out really well for me with that ADHD type stuff is like audio hearing. Like I just pick it all up. Like I could hear, so one of my favorite things to do was, well, two favorite things. One was to be able to walk up on someone and drop a drink as they took their last drink and give them their next drink and not say anything and just walk off. But my absolute favorite was to be in the middle of that busyness and be able to walk up and drop a drink and then drop a sweet comment right in the middle of their story, like I was in the conversation, right? So
Yeah,
like, and they were just like, "What?" But
and it
I
would
would
fit
be able to
perfectly.
follow, yeah, and it would fit perfectly.
It would fit perfectly.
And I didn't get, I mean, I got a lot of times over the years that I got to do that, but yeah,
We
just the
call
whole
that
timing has to work.
divine flow,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you
Oh,
were
you're right.
in divine flow.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what I picked
Absolutely.
up on you when I first met you over Clubhouse, is that the flow by which you just like, in order to do aquaponics, in order to farm raise fish, in order to grow plants, there is a touch, there is a gift, there's a gift
Yeah.
to that, and
Yeah.
it's on a higher plane. It's not the human just
Yeah.
knowledge that you do it, but that there
Right.
is a higher plane by which that travels through you. So when that
Yeah.
touch, that organization, that design comes through, it's just like it's
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that link up, right? And it's the
yeah,
idea that life is all of this, right? There's no difference between me and those fish and me and that plant. We're all life. And
that's
we're
right.
all we're all here dancing around, survival, reproduction, running the algorithm. But there's a little something behind all of us, right? And I was like, I called it the witness, right? Because we got a body, and then we have our mind. But then you can kind of slide back a little bit and you can watch your mind work. So then you're clearly not your mind either, right? And that, like, I call it the witness on the backside. And that witness is stillness, right?
Yes,
Peace,
yes, it is.
non-judgment, like non-communicative, right? All it does is watch.
Observer. I call it the observer.
Yeah, the witness, right? The trees
Absolutely,
have that witness. The plants have that
that
witness.
witness.
My tilapia in this tank right behind me, right here. They're sitting here watching this right now. As I look back, there's 5 of them right there being like, "What are you doing? Feed me." They want some food. But yeah, like when you have that interaction, and then to me, then we also have this other realm of wizardry with the microbes, right? And they're actually, people don't ever think about them. And that's really where that's really what ticked it for me, was the microbe side of things. We don't see them. Never, unless you pull out a microscope, you ain't never seen one. But they're the most important thing. The reason we get to eat every day. When we eat, I mean,
The microbes break it down. They bust it
right?
down.
I was
Make it
joking that like
become
you've never
digestible
actually,
bite size. Yes.
right? And I was you've never, you're like a donut. You nothing that you've never had food inside of you, right? It was just hanging out in this tube. Run from one, and inside that tube is trillions of critters that are breaking all that down and doing the interaction. Same thing with the roots, trillions in there, and some of those are the same exact ones. There's not even a difference inside of us and over there in the root zone, right? And
Yeah.
then you have the fungal action, which is probably, I mean, that's a crazy interaction with the fungi, right? So all of these different things working together, like nature doesn't waste, right? There's no
No,
waste stream in nature,
no, it
right?
isn't. There isn't.
Not until we started playing around and we forgot and started making plastic and doing dumb stuff.
Oh,
But like, there doesn't have to be a waste stream for us either,
yeah.
because we didn't have a waste stream for centuries, right? Like it was thousands and thousands of years humans didn't create a waste stream. It's
Yeah.
only been in the last couple hundred years that we've been doing that. Other than that, like, I mean, you go back, I don't know how far exactly you got to go back, but 120, 130 years, farmers were 100% organic and there was no waste stream.
That's right.
All the waste from all the things was turned back to the thing, and we had crop rotation and the genius. So like, and it's frustrating to watch it all go down, and like we could fix it, fast, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
um
So we're almost coming up on an hour, and I hate to wrap
okay.
this up because I could talk to you
Oh
forever.
yeah,
I could
right,
totally
yeah,
talk to
I know, and we didn't,
you.
yeah, we didn't even get halfway
Yeah.
through anything, but yeah,
What I
so
would love if you would just end it with sharing with us, if someone wanted to learn aquaponics, how could do they touch base with you? Does your organization offer classes? And then also how to reach out to you.
yeah, so Clubhouse, really, I mean, that's the easiest way. Like for me, that's the one social media app that I do like.
Okay.
um but I have an Instagram, and that one's pretty good. And then here coming up shortly, I'm working down this path, and I will be starting, most likely going to have to get on the TikTok, because it'll be interesting. But so I'm going to go down, and I'm working on doing my own podcast as well.
Okay.
Uh, but the easiest route at this point in time would be to go to the I will
Okay.
projects.com,
Okay.
and you can reach out to there. The email address is info@iwillprojects.com. So if you're
Okay.
interested in the learning side of it, that would probably be the best method. We don't aren't offering active classes, but we're working towards that to be able. So we're trying to put together an e-class. So we're going to be able to get all this stuff going, and then you could just take it and do it asynchronously. But yeah, like reach out, we can figure it out,
Okay.
and for schools and that kind of stuff, definitely reach out, because we can set up that. We've already got the curriculum built out for that. We had a NASA grant in 2021, so I actually got a chance to work for NASA, which is crazy. And we did 155 students with the Boys and Girls Club, and each one of them got their own little mini fish tank. So that's the program that we're bringing to Kenya.
If we
Yeah.
had the opportunity to ask what you wanted, what would you like to see? Would you like to see the prospering of I Will project being all international? What would you like to see? Or is it just you? Or what would you like to see?
No, yeah. I mean, I want to see the I Will projects be international. Absolutely. And then I'm down the roller coaster. I don't know where I've just gave up on trying to even control my life in the sense. And I'm trying to go out here, and I'm trying to be me, and I'm trying to teach people. That's really what it's all about. So I plan on hopefully, doing some courses myself, because the I Will projects like our whole program is for children at this point.
Hmm.
right? And then I realized like we don't really have a course for adults. So that's where my path is going to be for the next little while, is building out some modules and some classes for adults. And yeah, we'll see that where it goes. So, reach out on Instagram or any of that stuff, and we can keep it in track. And as within the next month or two, things are going to drastically change for me
Okay.
in a lot of ways. We got a lot of projects coming up with the I Will projects, and then the You Think Indigo. Now that I'm involved with this, I still am just in shock and awe over it, and I
Yes,
don't really know
you're
where it's
phenomenal.
going because
Right.
I haven't really gone far enough down the path to know what is going to come of that.
Well, I
So
want
yeah.
to reserve the right to pull you and pull your knowledge because I'm here in Angola. And
Yeah.
as I beef up projects here in Angola, I'm going to keep you in mind. And I
Yeah.
reserve the right to contact you. I want to keep the
No,
line of communication open
absolutely. I mean,
and pull
I know
forward
you
your
like the
knowledge.
Clubhouse too, so
Yeah,
if we can catch times, the hour late, but I'm usually a night owl because I still can't get out of that bartender mode. So,
sure.
I'm usually up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So, if
Okay.
catch me online or whatever, just, feel free to reach out. And I'm especially in Clubhouse, I'm just wide open, and I'll
Absolutely.
answer all the questions that you've got. And I think that, if we want to go down the path a little bit, I'm pretty sure we can get you a system built right there.
Okay.
Get yourself a water pump of some sort, or a air pump, and we can talk
Well,
some more about the actual details and stuff and see
yeah,
what
in
you
a
can get.
perfect world, I am going to challenge you with bringing you in one of the most remote places in Caliquimbe, Angola, so that they're an agricultural community, but I want to show them other ways to grow
Yeah,
other than
absolutely.
just because they go through a dry season, they can lose their crops
Right.
completely. And they do
Yeah,
have
see, and this is
a river
yeah,
stream
and
for
yeah, so, and the nice thing is like they can use that, and then if they can build some smaller ones, then maybe they can have one in their backyard, right?
That's right.
That if the crop does fail, at least they're not totally out of food, right? They can still have some
Exactly.
nutrition coming in. And if all everybody in the village gets together and has a small one, everything will be fine.
Everything will be
And that's kind of what it's all about. Everything will be fine. So that's really, I mean, I'm just so excited to be able to work in Africa. And now I've I'm working with Ghana and Uganda and Nigeria. So it's just fascinating how it's all playing out. And yeah, and I'm excited to be on the roller coaster, and just see
yeah.
where this goes. And I'm just gonna follow it down. And I figure if I'm just following the path of trying to teach people things that can change and to me, it's also it can change the ecosystems. It can help the planet. Like,
And that's your contribution, and it's
right?
beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. Yeah,
So this has been Nate Miller. Thank you so much for taking the
yeah.
time and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and contributing your gift to humanity.
Thank
And
you.
I want to reserve the right to bring you back again.
No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we can see how it goes, because we didn't even get halfway down the path here. I kind of went off on all kinds of little side angles, but that's what it is, right? But yeah, for sure, I'd
So
come back
we'll do it
anytime.
again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so
So
much.
thank you. And everybody, again, this is another episode of The Infinite Way where spirituality meets humanity. So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.